cloudy Sunday evening. Just a little bit of a. Can you try saying something, please?
Is it clear now? Is
Yeah.
it good?
Fantastic. Thank you. We'll wait a couple of minutes for everyone to join in, but in the meantime, just wanted to lay out the structure of the conversation. Just a very free flowing conversation where everyone's coming in asking a bunch of questions, but more importantly, trying to decipher how your application's journey was, what was behind the decision to do MEM as a degree, and then getting into admits and finally making the decision towards going into Purdue. Yeah.
Absolutely fine. Works for me.
Where are you right now? Are you based out of India somewhere?
Yes, so I'm connecting virtually from Chennai.
Ah, okay. Sounds good. And visa and everything is sorted out. Are you all set to fly out soon?
By God's grace, yes. I think visa was a very nerve-wracking experience.
How
Uh,
come?
oh, so I had a case wherein it was a very familiar case, wherein their visa was rejected. And throughout the application process, I was like, until unless we have our passport stamped, we are not assuming that we are going. So the presumption was, no, you're not going until unless the visa is actually there. So it was extremely nerve-wracking, I would say.
Yeah. Usually, see again from a US perspective, right? You guys are coming in as foreign students, which means that they get a lot of money out of you. In majority of the cases, just doesn't get rejected unless there's like one small thing somewhere here. All right. I think we have a couple of people that have joined in. Yeah. Hey everyone that's joined in. Just like always, we'll do a free flowing conversation with Maya as well. Make sure to keep all your questions ready. As and when there are a bunch of questions, I will keep asking them, and hopefully we'll get a bunch out of the session as well. Thanks so much for taking time out on a Sunday evening, Sunday afternoon. That too, really pleasant weather, at least in Hyderabad. I'm sort of kicking myself for not being able to go out and play basketball. But thanks so much for coming out on a Sunday evening. Um, you want to start it off with a little bit of an introduction? Go back to high school first, like 11, 12.
Mm-hmm.
One of the most fascinating questions for me, or for some of the other stuff that we do, is the answer to why did you pick engineering?
Okay.
What prompted you to first take engineering, and then we'll dive into the undergrad before we move on to the master's journey. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. All right. So I think Suraj, Nilesh, thank you. Thanks to the whole Gradvine team. You're quite generous, and really, really thankful for this opportunity, and glad to meet so many students here today. So for those of you who don't know, this is Maya here, and I'm going to be talking about my application journey for graduate applications necessarily, in specific engineering management. To answer Suraj's question, where I pursued my 11th and 12th. So, Suraj, actually, that's a fascinating story because I have switched schools quite a lot. I was born in Goa and have grown up in 7 different states. So my ninth to 12th luckily happened to be in one particular school. Thankful for that. But anyways, that was when my dad's work actually moved to Chennai and we relocated. And this is where I pursued my 9 to 12th. So I think it was at when we are all in 10th grade, it's all, at least back then in my when I was pursuing 10th, things were quite easier, and I hear that then things have become difficult with board exams and the whole system changing. I think we were doing this whole CGPA system, wherein it was, I would say, fairly fine to score a good CGPA.
Right.
Then comes 11th grade, wherein everybody is trying to think, hey, which stream do you want to pick? And I know there's this natural, uh, bias wherein if you're a good student, if you have a high CGPA, you go on to pick science, and if not so, you pick something like arts and commerce. But
Right.
I think where I came from was very simple logic that was I loved mathematics, and I wanted to do anything and everything to do with mathematics. I I could like literally sit with sums all day long, and I was like, hey, which is what allows me to, engineering is what allows me to do that. And the natural
Right.
route would be to pick science. And my school actually offered options to pick bio along with mathematics as well. Um, so there was a little bit of confusion as to, hey, do you want to take biotech and expand your stream and actually see whether or not you might gradually be interested in that particular spectrum. But then I think when I was just trying to deduce things, it just wasn't what I wanted. And that is how I arrived at engineering. And again,
Fantastic.
this is what played a major role in picking electronics as well because it has the most number of mathematical papers.
Okay, fantastic. So the love for math was a straightforward decision for you to be able to pick up engineering. Um, while you're talking about engineering, and this is going to be the next question, right? I want you to divide the 4-year journey into two halves.
Okay.
First and second year of engineering, when you're just getting used to campus, you're getting used to the subjects that are there, etc. Third and fourth years, when you're starting to feel the pressure around you, a lot of people must be, at least seniors must be heading out abroad. Some of them must be taking up full-time roles, etc. So divide engineering into two parts for me. Talk about the first one and then move on to how everything around you shaped the idea of either going into a full-time role after undergrad or heading out for a master's degree after.
Absolutely. Um, so I think this is where I was slightly different, I would say, because most of the people when they finish their 11th and 12th, they go in with the concept that, hey, you know what, now it's engineering time, I really want to chill.
Right.
But I think I had gotten a lot of suggestions about, hey, do not have all the fun that you possibly can in your first year because it will affect your CGPA. And
Absolutely.
I was quite concentrated. I was like, high CGPA is the goal for first year. That's all we do. Obviously, there's a lot of things happening around you. You want to be making friends as well. I did that. For that matter, I think of myself as an extreme extrovert. So that was something that I couldn't help to put myself out there, just make friends, talk to a lot of people, a lot of relationship building is something that I really valued. I think that this comes naturally because I had to move school. So until unless I was an extrovert, there was no way for me to actually become friends with
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think the first 2 years, the first year specifically, it was all about the CGPA. If I recall correctly, my first year I was standing somewhere at 9. So I was like, okay, this is a base, at least 25% is covered. And this is the easiest semester, easiest couple of semesters that you'll have, right?
Right.
Uh, so I was quite satisfied with that. And then I think towards the second sem is when college opens up opportunities for us to explore different clubs, different opportunities for you to sort of interact with a lot of other students.
Right.
I think I became a part of something called EcoSoc Club. It's called the Economic Social Club,
Yep.
and Mathematics Club as well. Then I think I was part of IEEE. So I had seen a lot of seniors pursue leadership positions gradually in their third year and final year. So that is something that and I was like, I think it's a good start to get myself introduced here at least. And I was just a member in my first year, but that's about it. Then comes on second year, wherein right you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, which is studying, getting good grades. There's a little bit of survival as well, which starts to kick in because you're introduced to the department in the second year. Things start to get a little hectic. So much so that I think I remember there was a subject called linear integrated circuits, and I was like, I have no idea how I'm going to clear this. It's just
Yeah.
God that's going to help me.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just butting in, but where was undergrad? Which university did you go to?
Right. So I pursued it from St. Joseph's here in Chennai. It is
Yeah,
affiliated
okay.
to.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, go ahead.
So I think second year was when I started to question myself that, hey, what's the plan after undergrad? Because I think I wanted a plan in place at least because obviously if I was planning to attend GRE or GMAT, my target was to finish it off within graduation before I
Mm.
graduate. It's
Mm.
a different story that I wasn't able to do that, but at least I had the vision to sort of evaluate, sort of see where I would be
Right.
after I would graduate. And I think there's a very common perception that keeps going around wherein I see a lot of students, in fact, some of them from my batch as well, who wanted to do their masters just to escape the competition of actually entering that. Hey, you know
Right.
what? I don't appearing for placements because you're not gonna get anything good even if you apply off campus. I
Correct.
think I saw it was, hey, you're going to be putting money, time, effort, 4 years towards a particular degree. Let's try and implement it. Let's try and apply and see. There's no harm in doing that. And if we get rejected, no worries. But if we get
Mm.
accepted, one, it helps boost self-confidence. And two, in my opinion, uh, I would recommend people to go for this work experience because you might not really know what you want to do, but you'll definitely start to strike off things as to what you
Yeah,
don't.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So this was still in second and third years. Is
Yeah,
that
this was in second, yes.
so? The thought of being able to either go towards a job or just the thought of what you would want to do in a career that started off in the second year of undergrad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
I think a bit of self-reflection happened there, wherein I wanted at least some answer from myself. Then
Understood.
comes in the third and fourth year, the second half that we were talking about.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
and my university, particularly, it's absolutely wonderful when it comes to placement trainings.
Okay.
They ensured that starting third year, they had a stream for competitive programming and any sort of interview preparation, resume filtering, whatever, basically any help that we would need, they were out there to do that for us.
Got it.
That's when things started to get real that, hey, okay, so you are going to be actually applying for jobs. So is that what we want at this stage? And then answer to that was yes. But then I also wanted to obviously give my GRE or GMAT. At that point of time, I was contemplating GMAT as well. I in
Okay.
fact started preparing for GMAT. Um, then I think the trainings became very hectic, and I had to put my
Mm.
preparation on hold. I was like, this is neither there nor here. I will not get a job. I will not be able to take my GRE as well. So I
Right.
just focus in one place. So I
Mm.
started appearing for all of these trainings, which actually was happening towards our vacation time. So it was quite a lot of sacrifice, I would say. But
Understood.
things happened for the best. So I was able to bag a pre-placement offer right at the end of my third year, which
Okay.
put
And this was an internship that converted into a full time or just a pre-placement direct?
no, it was an internship, but a pre-placement was
Okay.
guaranteed. Uh,
Understood. Okay.
so this was at Value Labs. It's an organization based out of Hyderabad. It's
Yeah.
a IT consultancy firm. So this is where I
Mhm.
interned for about 3 months, Jan to March of 2020. That is when COVID hit. All of us were sent back.
Yeah.
Graduation was a little bit delayed, but luckily, I think Value Labs was just ready to offer us full-time positions even before our graduation. So
Understood.
I finished my final exam of 2020, but then I had started working by July of 2020 already.
Okay.
Okay.
Fantastic. And so, talk to me about one, what the internship itself was. What was the process for you to be able to get that internship during undergrad?
Mhm.
You said that this was a company that said even beforehand, if you get the internship, you're most likely going to be converted into a full-time position. Correct? That's the motive that they came in with. And then talk about the role particularly that you had at Valley. Right.
Absolutely. So I think this was, as I mentioned, it was a pre-placement offer. It was on campus. This
Mm.
organization had come, and I think it was the very second organization which had actually come to my campus
Okay.
towards the very end of my third year.
Okay.
Um, Universities follow this rule, right? That once you have an offer, you're not sort
Yeah,
of
you can't sit for some of the other placements. This is just bullshit,
yes.
but okay.
Right. So towards the start, when the organizations are coming and when not a lot of people are placed, that means the competition is intense. So I had everybody, basically everybody in the competition pool. The first organization came in, I cleared couple of rounds, but then failed at the very final round. This was Zoho, and
Okay.
then comes Value Labs, and they had a competitive coding round. Along with that, we had aptitude
Mm.
as well. So if you sort of clear these, then you have the interview. Um,
Mm.
and once the interview is done, you basically get your offer letter. And then later
Got
on,
it.
they were like, hey, why don't we extend internships as well? And invite these students to come explore our office premises in Jan. And I think
Mm.
the internship, the role as such was of a software development intern
Okay.
in the global delivery team. And the client that I was working for was, again, it was a very software-based industry. So most of their clients had software requirements specifically.
Okay.
Um, so I think because it was just 3 months, even the organization was very clear about the expectation. They were like, hey, you know what? We just want you to get comfortable with the corporate environment. We want you to interact with as many people as you want and try and learn things. So as far as learnings go, I still remember the VP of the organization had sort of greeted us and he was like, hey, the logic that we go by is that you take a dive and then you start to learn how to swim.
Mm-hmm.
There's not going to be any trainings, you're going to learn on the go, and it all depends on
Right.
how much you self-explore. I think
Nice.
it was a great learning there. YouTube was our source to sort of self-train, and then we developed an end-to-end, just much like a POC, an end-to-end web development app, just to understand the whole full stack flow. While it was interesting, and I believe that web development is an extremely creative field, it keeps you on your toes. Every now and then you have to be updated with what's going around. I
Yep.
think it struck off my list because I was like,
Okay.
I'm not really enjoying this. Um,
Understood.
and I continued there for about 6 months during my full time, but then I think I was not able to see myself doing that in the longer term. Even though I
Understood.
had higher education, still I would have wanted to do something more inclined to what I wanted towards my work experience. So that was when I started to look for a switch, and I moved to this organization, Caterpillar, which is what I've been working for about the last 2.5.
Fantastic. And so, at this point in time, you were still not actively thinking about higher education or applying for a master's degree or what sort of masters would I want, etc. Not yet, right?
Is there. In fact, it was more inclined towards an MBA, I would say, um,
Understood.
which is why I think work experience was what was priority at that point of time.
Got it.
But then I think it's also to do a lot with awareness, right? The more you browse, the more you talk, you realize
Yeah.
course like engineering management exists out there, which probably fits your need far better
Yeah.
than it probably does. So I think
And
that
we'll come
that's
to that. Um, uh, that's one of the things that I think a lot of students right now that I talk to are struggling with. Understanding the differences between an MEM and an MBA, that's number one. And even before that, being aware of the fact that MEM as a degree might lead you to certain similar outcomes as that of an MBA for an early professional, right? When did you first hear about MEM, if you can just remember that point in time, and what about it struck you that led to you actually eventually applying there?
right. So I think when you try to sort of lay out your career trajectory, you are in a particular place, you intend to be in a particular place, and then there's obviously certain things that you should be doing to get there, right? Leaving aside the fact that a graduate degree also helps you do that.
Yep.
Um, I think MBA was there in the picture, but then what I felt was I think this comes naturally because I was working for Caterpillar. It's a more industrial based organization than digital software, and I
Correct.
developed interest towards these products that you can see, feel, touch, which are out there on the field making a difference. Um, so I think I visualize myself in a particular sort of role within this particular organization, which would help me probably get MBA admits, probably
Hmm.
M7.
Hmm.
Difficulty was there was a gap which was existing for me to come from here to there in order for me to reach finally at the main point which I was.
Understood.
From here to here, the issue was that my background was in electronics and I had software experience as such, and not very industrial in nature. So people with a mechanical degree or industrial engineering,
Hmm.
or people with industry experience for let's say 3 to 4 years in this particular domain seem to have an upper hand, which is very natural. I mean, I'm not going to complain about it. It's absolutely natural that, yeah, sure, you have passion, but if recruiters have gotten an option wherein there's experience and there's that exposure, right, they would go for it naturally.
Correct. Yeah.
I started evaluating that, okay, how do you bridge this gap? Even if MBA is the final what you're going to do, again you might be back to square one, saying that, hey, you have not got this background, you have not got this experience. Let's say if I wanted to stay in digital and tech, it makes sense. It would have made sense to, let's say, pursue MBA and then probably get back into the same industry. But the issue was that lack of the background. I think that was when, I think this was in the first year of my work, when I realized engineering management exists out there. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's also vital as an MEM applicant, it's vital to accept the fact that not always the outcomes might be similar, just to avoid any disappointment. Because
Right.
obviously, you've got these MBB firms which are very particular about the universities that they hire from. So
Yeah.
might not be exposed to that, but again, you have to pick what's best for you. And I think at this given moment, I wanted to go for an engineering management degree, given that it would allow me to make that pivot much sooner.
Understood. Okay, let's talk about the admissions process itself, right? So, it's been about 6 months value, and then to Caterpillar for about 2 years or so, and then that's when you actively started to think about the applications process, and you figured out that MEM was the path that you wanted to go to, right? Can you talk to me about the universities that you applied to? Why were these the places that you would probably, if given an admit, you would go to? What was the shortlisting strategy for you? And then talk to me about what the end result of the entire application is.
Absolutely. I think I was in the best. I mean, the way I approached it wasn't probably the best technique, because I came in from the perspective, hey, let's apply to almost everything possible. Once we have the admits, and then let's try to
Sure.
shortlist what we want to go
Yeah.
for.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also, it came from a place of, hey, when you try to like move out one university, are you doing that because you're not very confident in that whether or not you might get in? So there's also a little bit of, hey, let me apply and see whether I get in, right? So these two factors were playing out, and then I think shortlisting initially was very, very difficult. I was not able to like bring it down to 5 universities or something. So I ended up applying to quite a lot, 10 universities in fact, which is not recommended, I would say. But then, yeah, so couple of universities that I ruled out, one was Columbia and one was JHU.
Okay.
Now, I think how the reason why I ruled these out were these were very data driven, extremely quantitative in nature.
Correct.
And I think these are great courses for freshers, especially who have background, because it gives you that niche technical ability, right? So how I
Right.
see this, you're going to have one of the two things. One is niche technical ability. But the other thing would be, if you're compromising on it, you need to have relevant work experience at least. If you it's really difficult to place yourself out there in the job market and have a sales pitch for yourself, right?
Yeah.
Freshers, these courses are the way to go, especially if they're interested in heavy courses. It gives you that in-depth subject knowledge and a very good sales pitch.
Understood.
But for me, I think as I said, right, I wanted to pivot from software and digital to more industrial uh,
Got it.
courses. These two were ruled out. And then I think I applied to, I'll give you the name. So it was University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, New York University, Dartmouth, Cornell, Duke, Purdue, University of Southern California, Northeastern, Northwestern. I, th- I think I've covered almost. Carnegie Mellon as well.
ETIM.
Yes, it was ETM. That's right.
Fantastic. Okay. One of the threads that we were pulling on the last time around, so last week we had a conversation as well, and he was telling us how picking a university, both during the shortlist phase as well as after you've gotten an admit, is not a universal thing. There is no, okay, irrespective of what happens, if you've gotten into a Stanford or a Dartmouth, just go there, right? That's been something that has existed as like a rankings of sorts. Of course, we are also guilty for putting out rankings once in a while. But again, one of the things that I put out very recently is the fact that generalized or universal career advice just does not exist.
Yeah, yeah.
Just based on what you're saying in terms of wanting to move towards a much more hands-on product instead of a software product or
Mhm.
industrial equipment, industrial product, right? that sort of fits into the whole narrative of picking a Midwest school like a Purdue or maybe even a UIUC. So I'm curious to know that. But picking a Midwest school over something that's on the coast because most of those are either concentrated on tech or on core product management, right? Was that the reasoning for? First of all, talk to me about which universities you've gotten in, and was that one of the reasons for picking Purdue over some of the other places that you got in?
Right. So I think the 10 schools that I mentioned, I got into 9 of them,
Hmm?
except Cornell. I had interviewed at Cornell, but things weren't in my favor.
Okay.
Uh, I think, as you said, right, the general idealization and
Hmm.
Ivy tags there with Dartmouth. So one of the most difficult choices that I've had to make ever was between Dartmouth and Purdue. Um,
Hmm.
and I think there was a lot of self analysis that was done as to, hey, which is going to help you get what you exactly want? Is it this? Is it
Right.
that? And honestly, I think it could have been achieved by both. It's just that you got to pick one and move on, right?
Yeah.
For that matter, all of these MEM program consortium schools are wonderful. You cannot go wrong.
Hmm.
Even if you were
Yeah.
like, let's say, close your eyes and just pick out shit, you're just not going to go wrong with it. Um,
Absolutely.
but it's just that when you have the luxury of choice, things become that much more difficult. So other schools were so would you want me to give out the reasoning between Dartmouth, Purdue, or like all together as
In
to
general, picking Purdue over everything else at the beginning, and then we'll talk about we'll dive deeper into that reasoning as well. But why Purdue in the first place?
right? I think right. So location. This is again my opinion that ever since
Hmm?
COVID had, ever since we saw COVID, the location factor really became really minimized. I mean, it didn't really matter as to where you were because interviews were being done online. Even now, let's say you get an interview call, you could always request them that, hey, can I appear online? Let's say I'm on campus right now, I can't really fly out. So I don't think location was a factor. And if we're talking about location, I think Dartmouth altogether is in the middle of nowhere, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's
If we were to see location or hey, how do you factor this in? I think it comes down to, do you want a city life or do you want a campus life? That's the only thing that matters here. Like, let's say you go to a university like Columbia, you probably get to explore New York City and all of that. Let's say you go
Sure.
to Cornell, it's more of just within the campus exploring people with this surrounded vicinity, right?
Right.
I think location was definitely not a factor that I took into consideration.
Okay.
Couple of other things, like let's say if you pick Northwestern, what I felt was Northwestern has a lot of amount in terms of the funding that they draw. So this is an extremely good school when you have, let's say, entrepreneurship in mind. One fine day having your own startup, and right after grad
Correct.
school. So this was something, I mean, Northwestern eyes closed, one can go for it if entrepreneurship is your final goal. But since mine wasn't, I would rather work for a corporate than have my own startup as such. Again, a very conflicting idea, but still, it is. That's what I would pick. So I think Northwestern was ruled out because of that. Second, if you see, Carnegie Mellon was amazing university, yes, but the course as such, it was at par with MEM, but because I did not have, uh, I think where it lacked was maybe I was not able to see data coming out of this particular program. This is where I was like, hey, maybe it's not there at par with the rest of the programs which have actually established themselves, and obviously the whole point of it not being part of MEMPC that also played out.
Correct.
Then comes in Duke. I think Duke is a great choice for people with work experience, I would say. Whereas for freshers, I personally wouldn't recommend it because until unless you're very smart about actually picking quant heavy subjects, then it's way to go. Just pick managerial subjects, you're gonna be in a fix because again, you will not have something that you can utilize to place yourself in the market out there.
Yeah.
So I think Duke was a good choice, but what I was not very convinced about Duke was they have these core courses that you have to take, and some courses are like intellectual property, which I was like,
Yeah.
I might not really need it.
And business communications. Uh, God knows why we need that after working for how many ever years, right? So
Yes. That's where Purdue was very different. They don't have like a set courses saying that hey, these are our core courses and you have to take them. Because the minute you do that, the perception that kicks in is hey, I don't want it, and why am I being asked to take it? People might as well just pick those courses on their own, but that liberty is being taken away. That's how I saw
yeah,
it. And
yeah,
Purdue has its requirements. Obviously, you need to suffice these many engineering credits, these many management credits. But that's only fair, right? It's an engineering management degree. You have to have a balance of both. So that's a
yeah.
very fair requirement. So I think this was one factor wherein flexibility was there. Uh,
Mm.
the second being obviously what it's known for, its co-op, right? Wherein they have very cleverly,
Industrial engineering.
yes, they've moved things around.
Yeah,
Usually, universities need you to stay on campus for about 2 semesters. Only then can you actually go out there. But they have made
correct.
this requirement, which allows you to apply for a co-op. Now,
TPT.
yes. Now the catch here is you can't do 12 months of co-op because then that will count as 1 year towards your OPT. So
Correct.
like 7 months is what people usually stick to, and it's a
Yeah,
certain time, right?
yeah,
Presence in an organization. By the time you graduate, you already have 1 year of work ex in the US. So
yeah,
just for people with work experience, it's just a cherry on top. And then
yeah,
I think third, there's a more personal factor I would say, given that I was coming from Caterpillar. Caterpillar, I have seen how Caterpillar people talked about Purdue, so it
yeah,
created a, bias. I can say that as to how people in the US actually view Purdue. Industries they really value it. They're like, I think the perception is that people coming out of Purdue are extremely hands-on. They can
yeah.
do things. They have not just sat inside a class and finished these courses. And for me, I think by the time my course starts, I would have finished 3 years and a couple of months. So I
Mm.
wanted something absolutely hands-on rather than being in the class.
Understood.
See, some subjects might require you to do that. So,
Understood.
initially it's like experiential learning wherein you have corporate consulting projects, or there's even an engineering course which is called the social innovation course in collaboration with Bayer, wherein you're
Mm.
given a socioeconomic problem, let's say somewhere in the sub-Saharan Africa. Sometimes they fly you out there to actually see these problems and implement engineering solutions to sort of get a final outcome, right? Things like
Yeah.
these. We have something called the data mine, which has got, I think, really amazing corporate partners. They've got Tesla, Caterpillar.
Mm.
I think they've got Merck, they've got Yamaha, John Deere as well, if I recall. So these, I think, the fact that such a well-established industry connect, which aligned with
Yeah.
the question that I had, that hey, what do you want to do after your graduation, which is to straight away enter the job market, right? This was the answer.
Understood. Fantastic. I think one of the things that not too many people would know is that the engineering management program at Purdue came out of the industrial engineering program. So that was the origin of the EM program at Purdue. It is like an offshoot of the industrial management, industrial engineering program. And Purdue UIUC, two big schools in the Midwest with absolutely fantastic industrial engineering courses.
Hmm.
I can't point at maybe outside of Cornell's IEOR, which is the Industrial Engineering Operations Research Program, which is also heavy on optimization, not so much on the actual manufacturing, just-in-time methodology, and all of that used to be there. But Midwest schools, UIUC and Purdue, have a very, very rich heritage. In fact, even Ohio State, very less known, but these have a huge history of beautiful industrial engineering and systems engineering sort of courses. And an offshoot of that is now the engineering management courses. So that reasoning makes a lot of sense. Have you had conversations with folks at Caterpillar in terms of both coming to Purdue, as well as after graduating and maybe trying to figure out a position at Caterpillar in the US? Is that something that you've touched upon at all?
Yeah, I think the way I see it is it's more of a byproduct of your good relationship building, and it's not done
Correct.
overnight. It's not done right after you get these admits, right? People
Correct.
willing to go that extra mile for you to trust and put their faith in you. I would say they see you grow and then they think that okay, probably we would love to have you back. And I think I've been rather lucky. So this is again a very different experience that I've had. I was extremely blessed to be part of this wonderful organization wherein people around me were very, very supportive. So I think one recommendation that I have for everybody, especially when they're working, right, it's usually like, hey, should I keep it hush hush? Should I talk to my manager about letter of recommendation?
Yeah.
But I think the only way to go about it is being transparent.
100%.
That's
Yeah.
when you will get the best recommendations out there.
Yep.
So I think I did that, and it was, I would like to believe that honesty also plays a very important role. They see that you have integrity, and nobody is going to stand in the way of you working towards your personal development, right?
Yep. Yep.
At the end of the day, if you were an asset, they want to have you back.
Right. Absolutely. Let's do a couple of short answer questions, just bullet points, right? You are, of course, someone who applied to universities after having a little bit of work ex, about 3 years of work ex before applying. What advice would you have to someone who's applying straight out for an MEM? Straight out of college for an MEM. Should they do it or should they not?
Okay, so I'll put it in two if or situations. So if they are inclined towards tech or digital industries, I think it's fine. Because again, just traversing back to the fact that you would want to build on quant heavy subjects, right?
Correct.
Uh, then yes, definitely. In fact, don't wait. Go straight away. But if not, if you want to make a pivot into, let's say, product management, or let's say industrial, these
Or
organizations
finance. A bunch of
based,
people want to be going into finance as well, it looks like. So,
right? So it's a very heavy pivot, right, from engineering to
yeah, yeah.
finance. So in that aspect, even if it's not relevant work-ex, I would still suggest that you do gain some work-ex, unless of course you're.
Fantastic. Fantastic answer. I couldn't have put it any better. Again, just to summarize for everyone, if there's no pivot and you are looking to break into traditional sectors that your background has prepared you for, go straight out. If you're looking to pivot, get some work ex before going. Fantastic answer. And then just about your profile, right? Given the fact that after electronics,
Mhm.
sure, Value Labs was in the same trend as electronics software development. The move to Caterpillar, much more on the industrial side, right? That's probably one of the spikes in the profile. Otherwise, can you talk to us about what else was there in the profile that helped you get into all of these bunch of places?
Right. I think all of these universities, one trend that I saw was, at least how I see it, is people having worked for Fortune hundreds or MNCs, right? They maybe had a
Yep.
little upper hand. I'm not trying to say that any other organization that you work for does not really position you that well. Definitely not
Yeah.
saying that. Maybe sometimes when you belong to such uh, MNCs or Fortune 100 organizations, you might have a little upper hand, right? Because you've already been part of some sort of different sort of filtration process, right? So they see you slightly differently. And also another thing that I figured out during interviews is that they want to see that, hey, have you got plans to sort of go back to this particular organization? Because they also want their stats to go up, right? That we've got a
Absolutely.
organization. So
Yeah.
I saw them being keen about it, and it's a fair ask, right? That hey, let's say
Yeah.
we have somebody interviewing from, I don't know, Boston Consulting Group. Do you think that you might want to go back to this organization? And then they have another industry presence, right? Um, so this, I think, yes, was one of the factors. Secondly, I think I came in. I had this perspective that okay, let's say you're quoting certain things in your essays, you might also want to highlight what you have done towards it, right? Yes, your graduate degree
Mm-hmm.
do that. So because I was talking about product management and pivot into customer facing roles, the big question would be, hey, you've not done this in your work experience. What else have you done to actually achieve it? So I
Right.
think right before my applications, I was doing a couple of extracurriculars, if you will, on the side, which
Okay.
was one was impact consulting. So basically, there's this organization out there which is working towards UN sustainability goals, and you can sort of apply interview with them. And then let's say you get different projects which you can be a part of. And the one that I worked on was to build up this new product, which was going to be launched in the organic food industry, a specific millet-based product, which the client
Okay.
also wanted to patent gradually. So this was a very hands-on customer-facing experience that I had, and project ran for about, I think,
Understood.
the second was something called 180 Degrees Consulting, wherein I explored my interest for marketing and just the strategy behind marketing, right? It's
ISB founders?
sorry?
Founders from ISB, correct? The
Um,
180 degrees,
no, I
or the
think it's
cohort is.
they've got branches, yes. So a couple of these
Understood.
branches are being founded by certain people, but then the organization as such is based out of Sydney. Again,
Okay.
great experience here because I was part of their global leadership team and I got to sort of interact with the chief officers themselves. Um,
Mhm.
there were people from almost across the continent, across the globe. So that sort of gives you a lot of people management skills, just how to interact with people, how you handle, let's say, differing opinions as well, right? So
Mm.
this was another thing. And then the third was a more of a sentimental thing that I had really worked on, which was during my work at Caterpillar, I got to be a part of an employee resource group, which was called Lambda, which is called Lambda.
Okay.
It works towards sort of sensitizing the subject around LGBTQIA, which I think stood out because
Okay.
most of these MBA essays want a diversity essay,
Yeah.
and I think I was just thinking, and I was like, I think this is the best example to put it out there to show that one can take an initiative if it really matters to them.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. Before I go on to the next question, just want to encourage folks to start asking questions. I'm almost at the end of all of the questions. Actually, in fact, the next one is going to be the last question formally that we'll have. So, folks, if you have questions, please make sure to put that in the chat, and I will try and get to all of those. One last question is typical, very cliched sort of question that I ask at the end of these Ask Me Anything sessions is, what advice would you have for someone who's applying right now, keeping in mind that there are a bunch of folks that have some work ex, also don't have some work ex. Just overall about graduate applications, and then specifically about applying to an MEM degree.
Right. So I think to look at the way I would look at it is would be there are a couple of internal factors that impact your application and a couple of external factors, right? External factors being your letter of recommendations and your GRE. So I think these should be prioritized because the internal factors ultimately boil down to how diligent you are and how well you manage your time. Even if let's say back on the final day you can like let's say finalize your essays, SOPs or whatever and just post it, right?
Right.
But it's these LORs and your GRE which could hinder. So these shouldn't be the reason that you could not meet your R1 deadline. And yes, R1 deadline is the only deadline that exists. That's what you should tell yourself.
Absolutely.
There is no
If
more.
there's one thing you take away from the conversation, please let that be that round one, as an international student, you cannot be applying to R2, R3 and expecting really good outcomes out of it. R1 is your deadline. Thank you so much. Go ahead.
And also another thing is not just outcomes, right? The fact that one result might come in earlier than the other one, and you might have to just
Yeah.
go on with the other with one final admit because you haven't heard back from the one that you applied for much later. You
Yeah.
want you want the applications to go at the same time and hear back from all of them at the same time to make a very informed decision. So GRE, I think the target should be, I think I've heard Gradvine also say this, by 15th August, be independent of
Yeah.
your
Get it.
GRE. I think it's a good strategy. By 15th August, if you're done with your GRE and let's say IELTS or TOEFL can be done by maximum end of September, that's the extent.
Yeah.
And by then, start your applications and send out the request to your recommenders. The 3 or 4 recommenders that you have shortlisted, just send out the request to them. Because either they're going to be your head of departments, professors, or people from your work, right? They're going to have
Yeah.
other priorities as well. You don't want them rushing in into this. Give them enough time. If you send it out in, let's say, October, they're going to have, let's say, 3 months to do that, assuming that would be one of your first deadlines. Give them
Yeah.
ample time and get that sorted, get GRE, IELTS, or TOEFL sorted. Other than that, I think. Yeah, R1 is the only deadline. You have to remember that. That's it.
Fantastic. Folks, open for questions now. I saw someone typing out a little bit, but go ahead. This is fantastic opportunity for you to talk to someone who's going to Purdue as well. So let's talk about the visa for a second, right? When are you flying out? What was the visa process like? And a lot of people, including yourself clearly, are very anxious about it. I mean, I gave my visa back in 2015, 2014, and it's been a while. I've seen so many, about 10,000 students go through their visa without too much of a hassle. So I am desensitized to the anxiety, and so I'm probably not doing a good job of helping students out with their anxiety. But why the anxiety, and how was the visa process?
Right. I think at this point it's very easy to tell everyone that, for me to tell everyone that, hey, you know what, it's going to happen just as
Yeah.
you anticipate. But I was in that very same situation wherein many people told me, don't worry about it, you will get your visa before you fly out, trust me, but I could not trust
Yeah.
them.
Okay.
Uh, I think the anxiety comes in from the fact that this portal just allows you to log in like 3 times. Um,
Yeah.
because I was most of the times at work, it was very difficult for me to do that because I was working from office. And then you've got these Telegram groups wherein you keep getting these pings whether or not there's a slot, but it gets you very hooked to the phone. I did not like that at all because I think my decision was made in March, sometime around second week, and the bulk of the slots opened up somewhere, I think around May, right?
Yeah. One big in May, one big in July.
Correct. So that duration, the wait from March to May, it was horrible. Half the time, even while sleeping, I would just have my notifications on. The chime would just disturb me. Even while at work, my mind would be like, "Oh my God, is there a slot that's available or not?" So I think that's what induced the whole anxiousness. But then when slots became available, it was quite easy. It was quite easy, and by that time, you would have made friends amongst the other applicants who will, let's say, dial you up or ping in the group saying that, hey, slots are available. So this will help you. But yes, I think you might have to go the extra mile to become part of these different groups that probably help you. And I think just keep in mind that at the end of the day, it will happen. And if you're going for good universities, again, and if you're
Yeah.
confident, you will get your visa stamped.
Yeah. Yeah. How was the interview like? Was that like a 30-second conversation with a white guy?
Tell within 1 minute, just three questions. What you
Yeah.
did, what are you doing, and what are you going to do? That's it.
Yeah.
So these were
Yeah.
the
Only and only if there's something wrong with the profile or you've done some underhanded stuff, only then are there chances for you to get a reject, because understand that you are going to be contributing to that country's economy, right? And in a significant way. There's about this year I think there's about couple 1.x lakh students
yeah.
going out of the US, and everyone on average will spend in the first 2 years about $100,000 to $120,000, which means that they're getting millions of dollars from you guys, and they don't want to say no to that, right? So visa rejections only happen when you're doing something underhanded. So don't worry too much about it. I know it feels like a bit hypocritical because I'm sitting on the other side of the table, but don't worry too much about it. Once you get a slot, it's pretty easy for you.
Yes.
I see a couple of guys typing. I'm going to wait a couple minutes to see if they finish typing and have. Okay, there's one question for us. How do you craft the SOP if you have work experience? Is there a magic touch that you can add to the entire thing? Emphasize on the work ex little bit or on the college little bit? How would you go about constructing the SOP overall?
Okay. Great question, by the way. Thank you for asking that. So I wanted to touch base upon this point as well, right? Because for MEM applications, it's not just one SOP. You might, like for the case of
Multiple questions. Duke. Duke
Duke,
as well. Yeah.
Duke is, I think, four, if I'm not wrong,
Four questions. Yes, four
right?
questions.
And Carnegie Mellon has got six, right? So you might have multiple essays, you might have multiple let's say they could call it an SOP, and then along with that supporting essays or diversity essays. At the end of the day, the crux of it is similar. So I think how one should approach that is list down the significant events that you want to talk about. overall in your profile. I'm not saying just in your SOP. List them out, be it from university. If you're straight out of college applicant, you might have certain examples from back in school as well, right? So just list them all. Now, things like, let's say you topped the class or you came third out of 120 students. These things, in my opinion, shouldn't be mentioned on your SOP. Rather, go to your professor and tell them, show them that, remind them that this is what you had done, and hey, can you vouch,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, so much like that, once you have listed down all your stories, put them in different buckets. Let's say this goes in academic LOR, this goes in professional LOR, this goes in like let's say your resume. Some points, just one-liners are enough sometimes, right? Then you're basically left with very few pointers. The way I approached diversity essay and SOP was diversity essay was this one story about the LGBTQIA. While you might have done a lot of things, I think it's very impactful when you talk about one thing, but in
Yeah.
depth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pick that
Agreed.
one most inspirational story for your diversity essay, I would say. And your SOP, I kept it strictly academic plus professional. So basically, there were no extracurriculars that I put in there.
Sure.
And the way to ace, how I put it, is two key things: customization and personalization. What I mean by that is today, if Maya is writing out her SOP, it is so personalized that tomorrow anybody else cannot take her SOP and say that this is what I'm going to do. So that's
Sure.
the customization is wherein you talk only about that university, just about
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
let's take examples from their website wherein whatever they call their Alumni Connect Association, right? Stated. They've got a social center for some social causes. Pick that out, mention that, show how you're dedicated
Yep.
towards it. Professor's
Yeah.
name, course's name, list that and your interest in that.
Yeah. Fantastic. It shouldn't be as if you've written an essay for Dartmouth, and if you just replace the name of Dartmouth with Purdue, you can't really expect to get in with SOPs of that standard. Fantastic. Another question I think is how good is Purdue for a product management? Should we be considering it if the aim is to go into a tech PM or a business analyst sort of a role? I'm guessing Mellon Law doesn't really have WorkX, and hence the question. So maybe answer it both from a perspective of someone who has WorkX and is looking to break into PM, and also someone who doesn't have WorkX.
Okay. So I think Tech PM is one of the most standard outcomes, especially out of Purdue. Robotics, Amazon Robotics, they hire very frequently, and quite a lot of people actually go to work there as Tech PMs.
Yeah.
Um, but then I mean, yeah, it's good to, have like a particular industry in mind, but also keep in mind that it's the US and we might have very few opportunities. So keep your spectrum wide enough just to avoid any disappointment. I'm not saying that, hey, don't get your dream goal. Obviously, one should be doing that. That's when you'll be able to put your best foot forward. Just
Right.
that holistic view. And I think to answer the question, how good is Purdue? So the problem is, if you look at its website, everything looks like it's so engineering based. It's mechanical engineering, industrial engineering. But I would request each one of you to take some time, just go into the website, see the courses. Project
Yeah.
management, let's say, being offered by the mechanical engineering department. You have got product and process design being offered by their industrial engineering department. There's a course called Entrepreneurship and Business Strategy. It's an engineering course being offered by their civil engineering department. So sitting and actually digging into what these courses actually are all about and putting a great curriculum out of Purdue's offerings. This is what I would say. And yes, to answer it in one line, yes, it's quite possible to break into um, in fact, for that matter, even if it's tech, right? Although Purdue is known for its industrial connects and industrial engineering as such, they have
Yeah.
great courses in statistics and data analytics. Absolutely amazing
Yeah.
courses.
Yeah.
Quite possible to customize it.
Yeah, what you're essentially looking for, I think all of the MEM programs are pretty solid if you are looking for a tech PM or a digital PM or a BA sort of a role. Almost all of the consortium MEM courses are very, very solid. You like Maya mentioned, you have to be looking for the domain that you want to get into. And then that's where each university and program sort of differentiates themselves from the other ones. Fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on a Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening. Thanks so much again, just for succinct and really fantastic answers to some of the questions, and also for telling everyone out there that there is no one correct answer. Whatever works for you is the one that actually works for you in the end. So thanks so much for that. We'd love for you to come back on as a mentor and have a couple of students associated that you can help mentor through the applications process. So as soon as you get to Purdue, happy to host you back again. Maybe talk about your first semester and how that was very close to reality or away from reality or away from what you had actually anticipated. So that'd be something that we look forward to. All the best. If you need help figuring out some of the other accommodation or anything of that sort, there's already a big cohort of folks heading to Purdue this time. Happy to put you guys in touch and right. Thanks so much for coming in. Really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you, Suraj. Really sweet of you to have said all of those things. But it was a great opportunity, and I would love to help in any way possible. Uh, the fact being that there were so many out there who were helping me when I was doing this process, so I can
Yep.
understand how much these interactions help. So if anybody wants to reach out to me, feel free to do that. Just don't even think about it.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. All right. Take care. Have a good rest of the weekend, whatever is left of it. Yeah. See you.